We are living in some truly important times with all the mandates and regulations that are happening. It really has a lot of people questioning and reflecting on their lives and the things that they have become dependent on for other people to provide. So in this live, I wanted to share with you the importance of sovereignty and how to achieve that so that we feel less of that pressure. A lot of people are upset at the moment, and I understand, because for most of us, the life that we have built is nurtured and only made possible because of that system and many entities and people that we rely on every single day for our own survival. So when that system gets yanked away from us and, the carpet gets swept away from underneath us, we feel that on a deep level. So we need to reflect on why it is that we have outsourced all this power to somebody else and why we now feel entitled to have that provided for us. Because that's the thing with allowing people to give you and provide for you, that you become enslaved to that which gives you life. So at some point in time, humanity traded in their responsibilities and duties to provide for themselves in their lives. They traded that in for a certain level of comfort and to a certain group of people and organizations that would promise to give that to them. So now that we're in a time, as time has gone by and people have forgotten the skills of how to live on the land, people have forgotten the skills of how to sustain themselves and their families independent of these entities. Now that control is being utilized to control people, to manipulate people into doing what they want, because the circumstances are being set by the people that control what gives you life. So now you're trying to go about your daily life, going to get groceries, going to the hospital for your health care. All of these things are requiring you to oblige to the ideas and ways of life of those who control you, of those who control the resources that give you life. So there's a trade-off. Anytime that you outsource your responsibilities to someone outside of yourself, you compromise your freedom. You risk your freedom. Your responsibilities are your liberation. Your discipline to those responsibilities is the key to your freedom. So if you can dedicate your discipline into the responsibilities, the things that you should be doing for yourself, that is your key to freedom. But because most of us have been born into a world and exist in a world where that is being taken care of by someone else, we live in the illusion that we are free. We live in an illusion that we can do whatever we want. But as we're seeing right now, things are really making it clear that you're not truly free, because your freedom is circumstantial. As soon as you don't oblige by what is being promoted or popular, as soon as your way of life doesn't go with what is being pushed, you no longer have access to the things that give you life. And this has literally become a reality. It's not a metaphysical or a metaphorical thing. It's literally to the point where you can't access food, you can't access resources unless you are obliging by the way of life and the perspective of those who are in power and those who control those resources. So the only way around that you can sustain your life is that you provide those resources for yourself. Oh, let me just get rid of this troll here. So you have to be willing to have the discipline to be able to work that every day. Like, that has to be part of your life way, so that you can regain the sovereignty that you are born with, essentially, but that we give away very quickly. So picture this. If you were living with somebody, right, and they started to take care of you and provide for you, you'd be like, oh, cool, like you giving me food, you're giving me a place to live. Well, if that kept going for a certain amount of time and then it stopped and it was taken away from you, you would be like, what the hell? But you will forget that it was your responsibility in the first place. This person was not supposed to be providing you with that or giving you that. They chose to in the moment, but as soon as the circumstances change or this person decided that's not what they wanted to do anymore, you are being left to feel like you are the victim, when in fact it was you that had outsourced your power to somebody else. It was you that outsourced your responsibility to provide for yourself and care for yourself to somebody else. And over time, you begin to feel entitled. So everybody that's feeling a certain way because businesses are requiring certain things is because they have become dependent on that, and they feel entitled now. They feel entitled that people should give them what they want because they have been doing that in the past. Like, you were doing it 5 months ago, 6 months ago. You've been doing it my whole life. Well, that's the thing. Nobody owes you nothing. The world doesn't owe you anything. Nobody owes you nothing. And when you realize that, you can take that pressure off, and you can stop blaming that business or whoever you're trying to go into that does things differently than you are. You realize that might have been given to you at a certain point, but the person and the entities have every right to move as they do, and you have no right to feel a certain way because you are relying on them. Anything that you rely on has power over you. So even if you are in a relationship and you think that you need to be in a relationship and you rely on your partner and all this, to some degree, you are outsourcing your power. And to some degree, that's fine, right? To some degree, that's fine, especially in relationships. When it comes to community, we can build together as long as we're going towards a certain goal. But in the context of civilization, when it's governments and corporations and other entities that we don't have a direct lifeline with, that just kind of trade resources with, that's when it becomes detrimental. That's when it becomes controlling the resources and manipulating the resources, unless you say what I do, or do what I say, I should say. So here's a predicament. Modern humans, and all humans exist on 3 different levels, okay? So this is just an oversimplification, but this is how I see it in my mind. So you have city dwellers, and city dwellers are the equivalent of CAFO animals, CAFO, confined animal feeding operation. So this is where they live in very tight environments of very close corridors of large populations, and food is brought in, right? Food is brought in to feed the animals, and they're basically fattened up and used for profit of the farm or whatever. So that's one level, the city dweller. And then you have the next level, which is like the rural living. That's the people that live on the outskirts. They might have a little bit of more knowledge about nature, and they grow certain foods, and they just have a certain level of connection that's deeper than the city dwellers to the natural environment. Well, they are like the free range animal, the animal that is allowed to roam a certain distance, but still is corralled by the laws and implementations of civilization. They are free range. And then at the very top of that level is traditional tribal people. And this is like a wild animal. If you were gonna get somebody to hunt, if you're gonna hunt an animal in the wild, that'd be like the wild game, right? Like if the equivalent of a wild cow, that's what a traditional tribal person who doesn't rely on civilization and its resources in order to exist. So most people have been concentrated into the first category, which is CAFO, city dwelling, confined animal feeding operations. They rely solely on people to bring the food into the cities and be fed, and they're concentrated in small areas of the world where resources are brought in, right? So the goal is to work your way up this chain to where you become and get closer to the wild human, the human that doesn't rely on the resources of civilization. So indigenous people are wild animals. I mean, wild is what I'm comparing it to, but we all animals. We all animals. Some are domesticated, some are wild. So even a human with a suit on is an animal. He's just been domesticated and trained to be and look a certain way, right? So he's not any higher on the civilized, with the positive where they use civilized, or he's not more intelligent than anybody. He's just living a life that's disconnected from the natural resources, and he exists in a world that doesn't have connection to that. Yeah, exactly. So wild can also be looked at as free. True freedom, the ability to exist without the consent or the need of the resources of anything outside of you but the natural environment that you exist within. So you could use whatever language you want, but different words have different connotations. Like, to me, the word wild doesn't have a negative connotation, or the word animal doesn't have a negative connotation either. I just look at things for what they are. But there are certain people who get triggered by some things and they feel a certain way about it, so I'm just going beyond the subjectivity of the word and just going to the objective nature of saying this is a good thing, a positive thing. This is something that I would want to move towards, and sharing the reasons why. But yeah, people are always going to play with the words, but I'm not focused on that. If you know and you can hear the message and you can see where I'm coming from and what I talk about, you know exactly what I mean. Otherwise, this is probably not the right place for you, and you probably need somewhere where things are more watered down and spoken in a way that might not ever insult anybody. But I'm willing to take that risk to explain and articulate myself. So that's the predicament that we live in. Most of us have given and outsourced our power to people and entities, corporations, governments. We don't know how to exist on earth without the assistance and guidance and the resources of a system that is providing it for us. The only thing that we're noticing now is that now is conditional. Now is going beyond what you want to do, and you're being enforced to live and believe and take certain actions that you might not agree with, but that they are requiring you now for you to access resources that give you life. So that's the main difference that's happening now, and that's why this is an important topic. And I love to see things in a perspective that empowers me. That's one thing that I could tell you in life. If you have any situation in your life, always choose the most empowering perspective, because it's not about what happens to you. It's not about the situation that you're in. It's about how you respond to it. So if you see this as a situation that's negative and you only mad about it and woohoo, like, poor me, that's not empowering. But if you say, well, look, this is a perfect opportunity for me to evaluate the shit that I have outsourced and begin to reclaim that power back for myself. Now you talking. Now this situation has become a catalyst for you to actually take action. The things that you used to dream about, that you used to talk about, living off the land and growing food, all of those things now can get put into action. This could be a catalyst for you to actually move faster and quicker and more direct into that, and not make excuses. So let me just take this person out, because I'm not talking about that. So realize that it's all about how you look at things. Your perspective is the only thing that you need to control in order to have better actions, because your actions are a direct derivative of your perspective and your perception. If you perceive things to be not in your favor, you will take action in a way that reflects that. If you think that this situation is a good thing and you're looking at the positive and how you can come out winning from this, then you will take actions that reflect that. So that's what this is all about. This is a wake-up call to all those who were on the fence or who have been thinking about it for far too long and have not had the ability or have not chosen to take the direct action. Even for myself, for things that I've been putting on the back burner, things that I haven't really gave a lot of energy to, but that I've been looking at and eyeing for a while. This is motivating me to go faster and closer and more direct to the goal and to the target, and to really speed up that process. So that is the positive take from all this, that now you are empowered to go out and to start reclaiming those parts of yourself that you have outsourced. So now I'm just going to talk about some things that you can reclaim back for yourself that right now might be under somebody else's control, but that you have the potential to reclaim it for yourself. So the first thing is your health. This is important because we are being told that our health is a byproduct of something that, we get at the hospitals or get at the doctors, when we know that there's so much that we can do for our own health. And the majority of human disease and illness is self-inflicted. The majority of reasons why people are sick, beyond what's happening right now that I won't articulate, the majority of the reasons why people go to hospitals and have been dying, not just in the past year or 2 years, but for the past 100 years, has all been a byproduct of self-infliction. We've been doing it to ourselves, and we continue to do it to ourselves. So if you change your actions on that, you can reclaim your health. So now you don't have to outsource that to your doctor. You don't have to outsource that to a hospital or to a practitioner. It's something that you control, that you are in tune with your body. You are in tune with the source of what gives you life, to the point that you dictate whether you're healthy or whether you're not. You don't go ask somebody else if you're healthy. You know that because you can feel that, because you're in tune with your body and you know the processes of how it works. And any little fluctuation that happens, you are aware and can correct because you have adequate knowledge of how to do that with your body. That's number one. Take control back your health. Number two, employment. We live in a digital age, man. If not any time, today and right now is a perfect time for you to generate resources remotely, for you to create for yourself a way of income to provide for yourself and your family and your community. There is not been any more perfect time. You don't have to go out where everybody has been endowed with a gift, and your job is to share that gift. Currency and money is just something that we use as a method of exchange. But what really counts is that we offer our services to the world, is that we put ourselves out there and provide value to those around us and even those that are on the internet and that we relate to. There's no other time. So if you don't know what that gift is, that's your first priority. Figure out what you're here to do and what you're here to offer and what the gift that you're born with is. And then figure out a way to offer that to the world and let that be what you use to attract the currency that you exchange for the things that you need to survive. Number three, growing and harvesting your own food. So whether you're gardening, planting some tomatoes, planting some vegetables and herbs in a garden or a small space, anywhere that you have access to, or you're going out into wild environments that still exist and that still have room and capacity for people to take from that, it doesn't matter. As long as you're having a part in the process of cultivation and acquisition of your own food, that is what you should be working towards. Learning to grow and food and what grows in your environment and how you can do that best. You have an immense tool. It's right here. It's called a phone. It'll teach you everything you need to know about that. Or you're going out into, like I said, into the wilderness, into the places that still allow you to have that relationship with the land, have that relationship with the animals, and getting into hunting and things like that, if that's something that you're interested in. But the bottom line is acquiring your own nutrition and energy and not putting that responsibility on somebody else. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. It could be a progressive, step-by-step way to get there, because realistically it's not going to happen overnight, and none of these things are going to happen overnight. But the more we become aware and we begin to reclaim that power, the more confident we will feel to be able to navigate this world. And when things like this come, we're just not going to feel as threatened as most people, because we have some sense of security within our own self and our own capabilities, because we know that we can make it happen. Number four, raising your own children. This is very important because a lot of people have chosen lifestyles that don't allow them to interact and raise their children. And when we think about children, we have to realize that children are us, and they're the future versions of us that will live on after we're gone. So we're basically replicating ourselves. And if we're not teaching and educating the children in ways of life that are harmonious, somebody else might educate them in a way of life that is disharmonious. So when we create lifestyles that all go along with this, when you reclaim your health, reclaim your employment, and learn to grow your own food, it'll provide time and a lifestyle that will allow you to raise children, that will allow you to be able to educate and program the children in a way that you see fit. But if you have the kind of lifestyle where you require somebody else to do that for you, that is a grave mistake, in my opinion, because unless you live in a community that thinks like you and acts like you and is fully on board with what you're doing, you should be a part of your child's education and upbringing as much as possible, so that you can control the programming that your child receives and will enact when they grow up and even after you're gone, and then pass that on to your children. So programming is possibly one of the most important things. Grace, I'm not doing questions this live because I just want to save it with the information. So I'll do another live for that if people want to tune in. And the number 6 or 5 is community. So we exist in communities. When it's in cities, you kind of enforce to be in a community around the people that live around you, but it's not true community. Community is something that we can create, and that's something that we can generate for ourselves. We don't have to be a part of these communities that have been fabricated and that already have a set belief system. We can go out and create communities, and the internet allows us to do that. And the internet allows us to have these communities start digital and then manifest them into the physical world, where people actually connect and build and come together on a physical level to build and do things for one another. See, the big misconception is that they want you to take an action they wanted you to take an action that they believe is in the best interest of humanity. But the thing is that that's not very clear to many people, and that's why there's so much division. And what's happening has literally been the number one thing that I have seen that has caused division between people ever, and even between people who seemed like they were on the same page, people who seem like they believe the same thing. This has been the number one thing that has caused division in every single community that I have seen and that I have talked to. And it's because when pressure is applied, you get to see who people truly are. So a lot of people who claim natural, who claim this, who claim that, who claim they would never do X, Y, and Z, when pressure hit, it revealed who they truly were. So that pressure basically pulled the curtain and allowed you to see a lot of people who you thought were a certain way, companies who you thought were of a certain ethic. Now all of a sudden you're like, why y'all are supporting that? And that's what pressure does. It shows you who people are. So be grateful for that pressure. Don't try to make that pressure go away, or don't try to hide that pressure. Be grateful for it and then act accordingly. So now that you see who people really are, now you can move in a way where you can choose to incorporate them into your life, or to still try to build and do something with those people, or you want to pursue a different direction. So that's all it is. But yeah, it's crazy how this has really done that. And even people who I thought like, man, they went the other way with it. But I think there's also unspoken majority that really just wants people to be able to have the freedom and expression to really choose and decide their own life and what they do with their life. And we're not choosing sides, and so that's what people don't talk about. So people get corralled into left, into right, into blue, into red, and they stop thinking critically, and all of a sudden decisions are made based off of what aligns with the team that you're on. And I'm just simply not for that. I'm for the free thinking mind. I'm for the person who be able to think and have decisions come to on their own, based off of their own thinking, their own logic, and what really they see fit best for themselves. So that this whole idea that in order to benefit your community in the world, that you have to do something that you don't want to do, is again outsourcing responsibility. Those people who are calling for that are outsourcing their responsibility to take care of themselves and be healthy. They're saying, I need you to do that so that I can feel better, so that the world can be a better place for me. So there's also on the other end people saying, well, I need you to not do that so that I could feel better. And then there's people saying like, well, I don't need anybody to do anything for me. I just feel good by myself, and I just want to be able to decide for myself. So it's like, you know, you have to see it from both angles, that most people in general are relying on others for their own comfort, for their own health, for all these things. They're outsourcing that to other people, and they're requesting that you make decisions based off of that. And that's simply not the way I see things. And I don't think that that's a good way to approach, because then you take away people's sovereignty. And when you do that, well, that's just, you know, begging for control. Thank you guys for watching. Stay balanced.